In settings where we've got higher trust, there's opportunity for conversation, problem solving, collaboration. In settings where we have low trust, there's suspicion, cynicism, monitoring. The more senior we become, the more important trust becomes for us. Because as we move up the corporate ladder, as we gain a larger span of control, we have less and less direct control over outcomes. We don't meet with customers. We don't turn a wrench. We don't, do client calls. We're making strategic decisions, allocating resources, those kinds of things. All of our aspirations, all of our hopes and dreams and goals are achieved through the actions of others. And so the more senior we become, the more important our soft skills or our leadership trust skills become. And 95 to 99% of the trust research treats people like they're rational actors. And I don't know if you've met people before, David, but we're not always rational, right? And so the stronger those emotional states become, the less rational we are. Love and hate are blind. And this is why we have such resilience in some of these long-term disputes. It's because we're trying cognitive, rational approaches to profoundly emotional issues. And so we need to reset those emotional states first before we can start working on some of the more cognitive, logical pieces. I tell you, what I do is I'll get people to pick a practice partner, right? A trust buddy to practice the skills on first. And I try to get them to pick someone fairly neutral to start with. Not someone who loves us and not someone who hates us, so that they've got room to play and practice. And it feels they struggle to start, even in a low risk environment, because it feels vulnerable. And right now, with uncertainty as high as it is, part of the reason we have such low trust levels is that our vulnerability hasn't really declined, but our uncertainty is bouncing all over the place. We're seeing changes in norms and values. We're seeing pandemics. We're seeing climate change. We're seeing, all of these things shifting. And that means uncertainty is bouncing all over the place, which means that we're really uncomfortable because our risk perception is bouncing beyond the threshold and below it, beyond it and below it, which means that people are really uncomfortable taking on additional vulnerability. And I've talked to so many leaders who have this mindset of, if I make one mistake, I'm finished. And that means that they're terrified and they can tolerate no uncertainty. And that means they start micromanaging the crap out of everybody that they lead, because they can't let them make mistakes either, right? Which strangles creativity, makes it harder for us to adapt and evolve. Truly great leaders now need to be able to step into the unknown a bit more, take risks, and encourage that with their teams.
So to put it in a business context, I guess it's an important question because A, for trust, because uncertainty, as you say. But if you've got, say, different management levels, so if you've got, say, a VP and a director who disagree on something and they're not being consistent in the way they put that across to the staff, it's so damaging to everything, like not just the uncertainty and the levels of trust, but the morale of the team, the productivity, ability to just get the work done, because you're following two masters, I guess is the phrase.
And it's challenging to know who to pick. And there's significant consequences when you're forced to choose camps. And this integrity piece is a real challenge because it really undermines morale. A lot of times we'll talk to organizations and they'll talk about the things that are written on the wall, the values and the mission statements and all that kind of stuff. And it's a source of cynicism. Because these are promises that are being made that aren't being kept. And there are times when decisions get made where you're sort of like, well, how does that line up with what we're supposed to be all about? And unless we are able to, when I talk about integrity with folks, I talk about You need to be able to tell the story that links your decisions back to your values. And you need to tell that story, because otherwise people make up their own. So the biggest gap we find is between how much leaders believe they're trusted and how much they actually are. And so I think introspection and self-awareness is one of the big keys for leaders. Being active, I can't tell you how many times leaders have said to me, yeah, my people really need your work. And the thought that's through my head is, yes, so do you. But they often don't see it that way, right? It's back to that 95% believe that they're trustworthy. Well, leaders are no different than the rest of us in that perspective. They believe that if there are trust problems, it's somebody else's issue to deal with. And so, I talk a lot to people about internal versus external locus of control. And when I used to teach undergrads, I would say to them, internal locus of control means you're master of your own destiny. You make things happen in the world. You're an actor. And an external locus of control means things happen to you. You're buffeted by the winds of fate. And I'd say, who here has an internal locus of control? And they were all good young capitalists, so all the hands go up. And I said, this is fantastic news. So if you don't do well in the class, it's not because I didn't teach it properly or the test was too hard. It's all you, baby. And they would kind of go, oh, wait a minute. I said, that's right. We tend to have an internal locus of control when we're successful and an external locus of control when we fail. We hear things like quiet quitting, bare minimum Mondays, like all these different analogies for switching to glide. And that's the cost associated with having low trust environments.